Welcome, everyone. Do me a favor right now. Can you lock eyes with one person in this room right now? And repeat after me. Welcome to hell. You are a divine emanation of the One. You are a blessing, and you are blessed. Give yourself some love, everyone. This is a place of love. This is where we are. Happy Women's History Month. And there'll be a day where we won't have to celebrate a marginalized community, but here at CSL, we celebrate our rich history of all the women here, all over the world, and we bless you. Here at CSL, we have 7 core values. They are love, healing, oneness, abundance, spiritual growth, service, and diversity. Today, our core value is love, and I want to bring up one of my favorite CSL women back to the stage. She means so much to me, and she wants to give you a little bit of a core value from her heart. Jeannie Looper-Smith.
Good morning again. I'm a writer and a storyteller. And today, to showcase our core value of love, I've written something in honor of Women's History Month, and I'm wearing my storyteller hat as we take a look at a story that's all too familiar. Women, we say we love them, but you certainly can't leave them alone in a garden with a snake and a piece of fruit. Before I get into the meat of this superstitious story of the Garden of Eden, I'm going to bring the story to you today as the fiction it is, but also as one that is interpreted tragically throughout the time as true. But first, in looking back at the history of women, there are legions of women in both the public and private spheres who could be acknowledged as having a major impact in the world and in their own little corner of the world. A few women from the well-known hit parade: Eleanor Roosevelt, Marie Curie, Florence Nightingale, Joan of Arc, Rosa Parks, the unnamed Salem witches who were burned at the stake for being healers and wisdom bearers. Susan B. Anthony, Bessie Coleman, Mildred Harnack, Gloria Steinem, Sojourner Truth, Golda Meir, Betty Friedan, Betty Boop, Madam C.J. Walker, Rosalind Franklin, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I could go on, but I've been given a time limit. Keep in mind that history, his story, history, has been written primarily by men, so that women's lives, abilities, and accomplishments through the ages have gone mostly unnoticed, unannounced, and unappreciated. Now, back to the garden. Let's go all the way back there in recounting women and their influence to the mother of them all, Eve. You remember Eve from the biblical Garden of Eden account. She decides to have a quick snack and a little small talk with a serpent, and single-handedly unleashes all manner of sin and chaos into the world. No matter what our religious background or upbringing, we've all been exposed to that story almost from before we were able to read. So, along with Eve, let's take a bite out of the apple as we look at how this biblical myth has had a profoundly negative impact on our view of women, of who and what we are, and how the misogyny and patriarchy it embodies has perpetuated this view of half of the people on the planet. Religion of almost every form has spun a tale of women's inferior nature and used it to justify female oppression around the world, seeing women as the other. The biblical story of Adam and Eve is another piece of literature that keeps women in a box. And although we've seen progress in the equality women deserve, women continue to have to advocate for our reproductive rights, against domestic violence, an end to over-sexualization and objectification, job discrimination, pay inequality, ageism, and other repressive issues. The story of Adam and Eve is one example of the many origin stories of sexism and discrimination against women, and how thousands of years later, we are still lobbying and fighting for our right to be equal. And we Eves need men, the Adams of the world, to join forces with us in this cause. In the end, Eve can be interpreted through a new narrative as the first feminist, a woman who failed to follow someone else's orders as to how she was supposed to behave. It seems Eve's only sin was neglecting to read Apple's terms and conditions. Since women in the past, and still today, haven't always been honored and loved, let's honor and love them. Not because we are someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone's sister, but because we are someone. Someone with massive worth and value. Today's core value in and out of the garden is love.
Good morning, CSL. If you are new here, then you don't know yet, but I'll tell you that CSL is part of a global organization with over 500 centers worldwide. We're a spiritual community that honors all religions and all faiths, and that's because we know there is no wrong way to worship, whether you're saying a prayer, lighting a candle, offering a mantra. We respect and honor any way that anybody on this planet is drawn closer to love and closer to spirit. And so we celebrate the diversity in religious practices today with our ceremony we call the Flames of Faith. The candle is lit for the Tao to honor the universal path of harmony, the natural way. The candle is lit for the shamanic traditions, honoring the belief and practices of all indigenous peoples worldwide. The candle is lit for Hinduism, to honor the spiritual path of devotion and the variety of religious icons and deities. The candle is lit for Judaism, to honor the path of sacred law. The candle is lit for Buddhism, to honor the Four Noble Truths and the way of compassion. The candle was lit for Christianity, to honor the Christ consciousness that lives in all of us. The candle is lit for Islam, to honor the path of peaceful submission to the will of God. The candle is lit for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, to honor the path of unity. And the candle is lit for our own faith, which we call New Thought, to honor the metaphysical path and the practice of universal spiritual principles. And finally, and probably the most important candle, the 10th candle is lit for peace, which seems very appropriate considering the war raging in Europe, and for the peaceful acceptance of all faiths, all spiritual practices, and all peoples worldwide. Peace. So I have a story to tell you this morning. It's not necessarily a pleasant story, but nonetheless, it's my story. When I was a kid, a little boy, I actually had a wart form on my finger, and being the fastidious young boy that I was, I did not like that, and I wanted to do something about that right away. So I went to my grandmother, which we called Meemaw, and I asked my Meemaw what to do, and she said, bury a penny in the backyard, and the wart will go away in a week. Okay, so I'm a young boy. I believe what my Meemaw says. She's the keeper of folk wisdom for our family. And so I buried a penny in the backyard, and guess what happened? In a week, that wart went away. Coincidence? I don't think so. When we sat at dinner table for supper one night, my mother spilled the salt. And you know what she did? You know what she did. She took the salt shaker and she threw some over her shoulder. And I asked her why she did that, and she says, well, I don't know. I guess it's for good luck. Come to find out, there's a good reason for throwing salt over your shoulder. It dates all the way back to Michelangelo. If you look closely at the painting of the Last Supper, you will see that Judas has spilled the salt on the table. So throwing it over your shoulder was thought to blind the eye of the devil, who supposedly stands right behind you, wishing you harm all the time. Ooh, look out. Some buildings don't have a 13th floor. Do you know some airplanes don't have a 13th row? My father was born on Friday the 13th. Could there have been a worse curse than that? 12 is good. 12 months of the year, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 signs of the 12 days of Christmas, 12 tribes of Israel. 12 is good, 13 is not. Why is 13 not good? Go back to the painting of the Last Supper. Who is the 13th guest at the table? Judas, the betrayer. Keep your fingers crossed for good luck. Don't step on a crack. You'll break your mama's back. Don't chew gum at night, and for God's sakes, do not break a mirror, because you will have 7 years of bad luck. A friend of mine told me the other day that when you are toasting champagne or drinking with your partner, with a lover, you must look them straight in the eyes when you do that, or you'll be cursed with 7 years of bad sex. My married couples are nodding, going, oh, yeah. Yeah, so that's what happened. I should have looked you in the eye. People aren't stupid. In fact, we're kind of smart. We are designed by nature to be curious. We want to know why things are and how things work. And so we try to figure things out on our own, and when there doesn't seem to be any logical explanation for things, we make things up. We tell stories, and stories get passed down from one generation to the next, and that's how we end up with all these superstitious beliefs, because we're really good storytellers. And of course, when something goes wrong in our lives, like if we get sick and something's wrong with our bodies, the first thing we want to do is we want to cover that. And this, my friends, is how medical science was born, because we're curious and we want to fix things. And this is how our own science also began. A little history lesson this morning. Science of mind started as a mental science. A couple of hundred years ago, when the medical field had absolutely nothing to offer, when the doctor came to your house and all he had was a bag that had a saw in it and some whiskey, people started looking for other alternative healing modes. And healers started showing up in the West who were experimenting with alternative different kinds of healing. Of course, in the East, Chinese medicine predated Western culture for 1,000 years. They already knew about qi. Qi is the energy that surrounds you, the essence of life itself. And meanwhile, the white Europeans, well, they said, oh, well, we'll just figure it out on our own. We don't need you Eastern people. One particularly charismatic man opened a practice in Paris in the late 1700s, and he was having so much with his healing techniques that he started to draw a lot of attention. He was a good-looking man with dark, intense eyes. You might even say he was mesmerizing. In fact, his name was Anton Mesmer, and that's where we get the term mesmerizing. His healing techniques include using stones and different kinds of metals on people's body and maneuvering them, and a lot of face-to-face conversation in his healing modality, followed by some appropriate touch and perhaps some inappropriate touch. Well, you can imagine what happened next. Young Parisian women started knocking on his door with all kinds of ailments, seeking the mesmer cure. Many of them walked away completely healed, claiming that he was a miracle worker. This, my friends, did not sit well with the established French medical community. They were not happy about this at all, and so they called for an immediate investigation. King Louis XVI was sitting on the throne in France, and he appointed a commission to investigate Anton Mesmer. 5 of the people in that commission were Royal Academy of Sciences, whatever that meant at that time, and 1 ambassador to France from America with a name you might recognize, Benjamin Franklin. The results of the commission for Mesmer were inconclusive, but his popularity waned after that, and his practice closed. Why am I telling you this story, this ancient story about mesmerism? Because I want you to know where we come from. I want you to understand our roots. Mesmer had students that spanned the Western world teaching his techniques, one of which made his way all the way to America in a small town in New England where another important figure attended that lecture. His name was Quimby. Quimby was the father of the New Thought movement. He was an amateur scientist interested in doing his own experiments in healing. Quimby tried to use Mesmer's technique but failed. He used the stones and the crystals and the different metals that Mesmer taught, but none of this seemed to work for him. Maybe he wasn't as charismatic. Maybe he wasn't as good looking. Maybe he wasn't as mesmerizing. What he did conclude is this: none of that physical manipulation worked to heal people at all. He said it's not the rocks, it's not the stones, it's not the metal. It's their belief that's healing them. It's because they believe. And he labeled his healing technique a science that we could teach everybody, the science of belief. He discovered that if people believe something works, the body will respond automatically and it will heal itself. Quimby was a Christian. He read the Bible and he studied the healings of Jesus. He said, who's the founder of this science? And he said, it's actually Christ. Christ is the founder of this healing modality that says, it is done unto you as you believe. What he discovered in his experiments was actually the mind-body connection. He discovered that your belief has a biological response and a physical reaction in your body because you have believed it that will heal it. He called his science Christ science. Quimby became very popular, started to attract hundreds of students to him. Mr. Patterson wrote from afar saying, take my wife, she's a mess. No, really, take my wife. So Mrs. Patterson shows up at Quimby's door in a wheelchair, confined to the wheelchair with some incurable disease, at least uncurable to the medical facility at that time. But through her classes with Mr. Quimby and through working to change her own belief, she got up out of that wheelchair and she was completely healed. Mary Patterson was her name. She later became known as Mary Baker Eddy. She took Quimby's Christ science and changed it into a more marketable Christian science. The founder of our teaching, Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, was a student of Eddy's, but he said her doctrine is too rigid. We cannot stop there. He said, in an infinite universe, we must remain open at the top for a greater revelation. There can be no final word on truth. And he was right, because in the 20th century, we discovered quantum physics and metaphysical sciences. So our teaching, Science of Mind, has its roots in Western culture and is based upon what Ernest Holmes calls the invisible government of the universe. Fundamental spiritual laws that work exactly the same way for everybody, saint or sinner. Laws that say what you give out returns to you, what you think about comes about, what you believe is what you create. In our book of the month, Living Without Fear, Dr. Holmes wrote this: to suppose that God helps some and not others is superstitious. To believe in a God that transcends law is superstitious. You see, my friends, every cause has an effect. Every state of consciousness is creative. So it is not some fickle deity who resides up there in the clouds that is in charge of your life. It's you. You are the creator. You are the thinker, thinking the thought. You are the knower, knowing the truth. You have a direct line to the power that spins the stars and created the universe. It's the power of your belief, and it can heal you. Personally, I think our book of the month is poorly titled. It's called Living Without Fear, and I think it should be titled Living with Fear. You know what? Because in our world, there's a lot of scary stuff that's happening, a lot of things to be afraid of. So the true task is to live with fear and not let it limit or restrict your life. When I was a kid, I was scared. I was scared of everything. I was scared of the dark. I was sure there were monsters out there. I was scared of the water. I grew up in Kansas. There's no water here. You're going to teach me to swim in a swimming pool? It took months to get me to swim. I was scared of the other boys in school because they used to beat me up. My greatest fear, oh my God, my greatest fear was sports. Oh my God, I remember one PE class. We were playing baseball, and the coach gives me the outfield position. Well, I didn't know how to play baseball, and I could have cared less. But I stood out there in the outfield scared to death that the ball is going to come my way, because then I got to figure out, what am I going to do? What are you supposed to do with the ball? Does somebody want the ball? Are you supposed to throw it somewhere? What do you do with the ball? Clearly, my fate was sealed early. It's clear. I mean, the other day, a friend of mine asked if I wanted to go camping. And I said, have you met Chris Michaels? Have you met Chris Michaels? No, I don't want to go camping. I'm really more of an indoor gay. I mean, I'll go to the theater, I'll go to lunch. But I am not going to go camping with you. No. Fear. Fear is an acronym that stands for forget everything and run. What are you afraid of? Do you know that doing what I'm doing right now is the number one fear of most people? Number one fear, stand before a crowd and speak. You know what the number two fear is? Death. That means that people would rather literally die than stand up and speak before a group of people. Yeah. I was thinking about, why was I so afraid all the time as a kid, you know? Maybe it's because every time as a kid, all kids, we're always trying something new, right? We're always doing something we never done before. You remember the first day of school? Ugh. Do you remember the first time you rode a bike without training wheels? That was scary. Do you remember your first date? God help that poor little girl that went out with me. It was rather awkward for both of us, really. Remember going through puberty? Talk about hormonal imbalance. As kids, we're always trying new things that we've never done before, and you know what? I got a feeling that's the way it's supposed to be. We are supposed to be living on the edge of fear and faith. We must become as little children again. Do you know who said that? I did. It was me. If you want to live a life of adventure, filled with excitement and joy, you're going to have to put your phone down. And you're going to have to leave your house. And you're going to have to go out as far into the outside of your comfort zone as you can possibly imagine. And so we're going to challenge you to do that this month. This month, we're launching what I am calling the Faith Challenge. And your assignment this month is to do something that scares the living hell out of you. Something you have never done before. Go skydiving, try a new hairstyle, take an acting class, go to a party where you don't know anyone, and feel the fear of walking in the door, not knowing a single soul. Walk the thin line between faith and fear and take the faith challenge with me. Do something new, something that scares you just a little bit, something you've never done before. And just so you know, I never ask you to do something I haven't already done. This year I did a lot of things that I have never done before that scared the heck out of me, or at least made me really uncomfortable. I mean, I went mountain hiking in Moab, Utah, and you got to know as an indoor gay, I ain't got shoes for that. I had to go buy hiking shoes. I took an acting class. I joined a boat club and learned how to pilot a boat. That's pretty scary on the intercoastal. I even stopped eating meat in January. So join me in the Faith Challenge. Learn how to live with fear and still not have it limit your life. Fear. What is it really? Well, it's a belief. Fear is a belief in duality. It's a belief that there are two powers in the universe, one that is working for your greater good and one that is working against everything you want that is good. And I'm here to tell you, no such reality exists. There is only one power, there is only one life, there is only one spirit, and that spirit is absolutely determined for you to live an exciting, love-filled, healthy, and whole life. But you have to take one step outside of your comfort zone for that life to be yours. It is done unto you as you believe. Do you know who said that? I did. You know what? After I buried that penny in my backyard, I remember to this day watching that wart on my hand slowly disappear. And just as my Meemaw said, it was gone in a week and it has never returned. There was no physical cause for that to happen. I didn't apply any topical solution. At that time, there was certainly no wart remover. All I had was my belief, and that's all I needed. And you know what? That's all you need. Believe in yourself. Believe in your power. Take one step outside your comfort zone and explore the infinite possibilities of your life that Spirit has, awaiting your first step. And so ends the lesson.
Good morning again, CSL. This is our time for our meditation. I want you to think about what's been going on in this planet right now. Not just the war that's happening in Europe, but believe it or not, and I know you all know, there's war everywhere on this planet. Today is a great day that we begin to really contemplate peace. One of the things that Ernest Holmes always taught us, consciousness creates form. Form always follows consciousness. And it begins with our intention. So I want you to close your eyes and go within. And I want you to bring into visualization the globe. I want you to see the planet far into space. I want you to see the one world. I want you to think about what peace means to you. What is peace? And whatever comes to your heart and to your consciousness, I want you to bless this planet with peace. I believe from our prayers and meditation, we can create a world filled with peace and love. Just follow your breath. And as we hear the sound of divine healing, we use the sound to elevate our consciousness, our vibration, and our energy to bless this planet with peace. Today we recognize that peace begins with us. It begins in our own consciousness, in our own spirit. And as this sound vibrates in this room, we send the sound of peace throughout the planet. We see the activity of love, of kindness. We see the energy of healing. We see a world that works for everyone. It begins with our belief. If we believe, it will be achieved. We knock on the door of world peace. It is open, and we step through. We send the vibration of peace to our leaders. Those who believe that war is the only answer, it is not. So we send a vibration of love to shift the consciousness. We bless all the families, all the children that have been affected by this war and all the wars. We send out love, kindness, compassion. And as we rise up in our consciousness, others will follow. We take on our leadership of creating a world of peace. We give thanks, and so it is.
We close our service as we always do with the closing affirmation and prayer, and I know yours is exactly like mine because I wrote this one. Yeah. So would you pull it out and let's say it together as a group. I let go of all belief in superstition. The universe works in accordance with perfect law. Let's know this together. We are surrounded and immersed in an invisible presence that we call God, Spirit, love, life, or energy. It doesn't matter what you call it. It is pressing in against us. It is rising up from within us. It has a destiny that is unique and specific to every individual. It has created you with a purpose and a place on this planet. You are here for a reason. You have something valuable to contribute. You are designed by God with the gifts you have, and it's your time in history or her story to make yourself known, to speak your word, to stand up faithfully in this life and be exactly what God has designed you to be. What the universe has poured out through your soul and your heart must be known. It's the only thing that can bring peace. It's the only thing that will satisfy you. Be you. Be you. Have faith. It's good enough. This truth is established in our consciousness and becomes the dominant idea which draws our experience this week. So we are blessed. We are blessed. We are blessed. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you for watching, and thanks for supporting CSL. If you'd like to know more about us, check us out on our website or social media. Blessings.